Hello and welcome to the Micronutrient Forum's 5th Global Conference, Connected 2020. My name is Howard Bouis and I am Chair of the Board of the Micronutrient Forum. I am joining you from the Philippines, which is now my home, after having worked in Washington, D.C. for 38 years at the International Food Policy Research Institute. We are pleased that you have joined us and we are excited to bring you this opening session of the conference. For reasons related to the COVID pandemic, we are disappointed that we could not meet in person in Bangkok this past March, but we would still like to recognize the host city of Bangkok in this virtual event. Right after my remarks for the official inauguration of the conference, the Micronutrient Forum is honored to receive an opening speech by Her Royal Highness Princess Mahajakri Sirinthorn of Thailand. Closing remarks at this opening session will be given by Aman Udom Gatemali, the Micronutrient Forum board member from Thailand. Tomorrow we are hosting a live regional session organized by our dedicated local organizing committee focused on malnutrition in all its forms in Southeast Asia. We are proud to bring you this virtual event, which has most of the same content as was planned for last March and more. The theme of the conference is building new evidence and alliances for improving nutrition. Even though we are not together physically, we believe we can work together through partnerships from academia, the private sector, government, civil society, to push the nutrition agenda forward. Let me take a moment to discuss micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals your body needs in small trace amounts. These tiny amounts have massive impacts. They are essential for growth, health, and development. Deficiencies in micronutrients can have lifelong negative consequences. Today, an estimated 2 billion people worldwide suffer from micronutrient deficiencies, or as it is also called, hidden hunger, deficiencies which are not immediately visible. Poor diets are recognized as the leading cause of all forms of malnutrition. Both food insecure diets and diets high in energy-dense processed foods that foster obesity. Current global challenges in malnutrition and other development goals call for integrated, multi-sectoral approaches focusing on the entire food system, leading to healthier and sustainable diets for all. We all know the importance of nutrition. If we work together, we can build on the science and move forward on a path of action. It will be a long journey, but the positive impact will be well worth it. Fortunately, we have the Micronutrient Forum, a global convener and knowledge broker to support us along the way, from research to implementation. At the forum, we are making a concerted effort to widen our disciplinary perspectives. A case in point is that the conference's directed track on food systems requires that we hear from those trained and working in several sectors. For example, I am an agricultural economist. To link agriculture and nutrition through more mineral and vitamin-dense staple foods, myself and others have worked with plant breeders, agronomists, seed companies, agricultural extensionists, financial institutions, food wholesalers and retailers, and of course, those in the nutrition community. Some of you may know that the Micronutrient Forum is now an independent legal entity. At our last conference in Cancun, the Micronutrient Forum was still a program under Nutrition International. Today, the forum is established as a nonprofit organization. I want to take this opportunity to thank Joel Spicer and others at Nutrition International for having hosted the Micronutrient Forum for 6 years and for their tremendous assistance to the forum. This support was needed as a foundation now to start on our own. I want Also to extend a special thank you to Lynette Neufeld, my predecessor as chair, for her leadership, talent, and hard work in founding the Micronutrient Forum and building its reputation for impartiality, rigor, and excellence. And to our current executive director, Saskia Osendar, we stand behind your zeal and dedication to drive the forum forward. Despite this turbulent year, we are on sound financial footing due to the support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, of USAID for this conference, and the new streams of funding for work on multiple micronutrient supplementation, on the COVID pandemic, and other issues that you will hear more about in the context of this conference. We hope you will enjoy and benefit from the knowledge available to you at Connected 2020. Through this conference and other means, we will be looking for ways to connect more fully with individuals and institutions that share our vision to work together more efficiently and cooperatively to reduce malnutrition by sharing ideas and data through new modes of interaction. We look forward to connecting with you. Despite our not gathering in Thailand, a country that is dedicated to improving nutrition, Her Royal Highness Princess Maha Jakri Sirinthorn of Thailand has been very kind to record her commencement speech to share with us today. Again, thank you for attending. Please play the video.
It is an honor for me to preside over the opening of the Micronutrient Forum 5th Global Conference. The significant role micronutrients play in health and well-being has been known, especially among the nutritionists and development community. Today, the importance for improving the quality of food systems is even more crucial for combating the persistent undernutrition and the emergent overnutrition. This forum captures this realization and strives to more closely link micronutrient interventions with the food system and environmental sustainability. Bridging essential micronutrients derived from food in the broader food system will be crucial in optimize and protect nutrition. By building alliances between a wide range of stakeholders and most importantly, the community, we can achieve sustainability and impact on health and nutrition. The current multiple burden of the malnutrition challenges us to review the progress made and identify ways to overcome them. It also highlights the urgency to be more innovative in our food production and agricultural practices while preserving and improving the environment. Climate change and its impact on our food system must be acknowledged. We cannot deny our responsibility for finding a new balance so that human development can exist in harmony with the environment in which we live. Most importantly, effective actions should be guided by sound knowledge from research as well as tacit knowledge and local wisdom from the community. I hope this forum will continue as a platform for learning and exchanging new ideas and innovations to achieve our common global goals. The Micronutrient Forum 5th Global Conference was originally planned to be hosted by Thailand. As a representative of the Southeast Asian region, the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic gave us a wake-up call and has change several of the conventional ways we do things. It cannot stop us from our dedication and commitment, but challenged us to transform this forum into a virtual one. We can still connect globally and extend our reach more for greater advocacy, nourishing the collaborative spirit among stakeholders can take a different yet efficient platform as we work harmoniously together to alleviate micronutrient deficiencies and scale up successful approaches to ensure people's health and well-being. In closing, I wish you all a successful conference and declare the opening of the Micronutrient Forum 5th Global Conference.
Thank you, Your Royal Highness Princess Maha Chakri Srihantharn of Thailand, for an excellent speech, highlighting the importance of good nutrition and that impact and sustainability can be achieved through dedication, commitment, and collaborative alliances. I applaud Thailand's commitment to nutrition by way of national strategies, which have made tremendous strides in improving the health of the Thai population and building the economy over the past 4 decades. And although I also wish we all could be together in Bangkok and I could meet all of you in person, I would like to take a minute to introduce myself to those of you whom I've not met before. My name is Saskia Ozendarp, and I'm the Executive Director of the Micronutrient Forum, speaking to you today from my home country, the Netherlands. I'm a nutrition scientist with a PhD from Wageningen University and have spent a career working in micronutrient research, starting at the ICDDRB in Bangladesh, with subsequent positions in both the public and private sector. And almost 2 years ago, I had the honor of becoming the first executive director of the Micronutrient Forum. Reflecting on the decision to transition the original in-person conference in Bangkok to a virtual space was not easy at the moment, as we were in uncharted territory. But today, I'm so proud of that decision. The Micronutrient Forum team worked diligently to keep the full program promised for the Bangkok event intact. We were touched by the overwhelming support from you, the nutrition and food systems community, the speakers, the delegates, and the sponsors. Your reassurance pushed us to continue and move forward with an online conference and rightly naming it Connected. We know 2020 has been an unprecedented year for everyone for obvious reasons. However, a dark cloud always has a silver lining, and moving this gathering online has opened the virtual door to a record number of delegates, 3,000 at the moment. And we are so incredibly pleased to welcome everyone here from around the world to learn, network, engage, have some fun, and connect. This impressive scientific program kicks off today with 23 live plenary sessions happening this week, 38 on-demand sessions, over 350 posters in the gallery, and 35 sponsored sessions. That is a tremendous amount of education and science available to you through the next year. We are grateful for those working behind the scenes to make Connected 2020 a possibility. The Cadmium Support Team and our own Micronutrient Forum team, and the Conference Committee, chaired by Klaus Kramer, and the Local Organizing Committee, chaired by Imorn Udom-Katmali. We are grateful to the Program Committee, led by the incredible Maria Elena Jeffords, and the track chairs, who organized the thought-provoking sessions. And to the speakers and the poster presenters, your dedication to micronutrients is astounding, and we are pleased to present your work on the Connected platform, a place where we are all able to convene, to learn and exchange on a wide range of topics connected to micronutrients. Your knowledge and presentations bring life to the 5 focus tracks, including micronutrient biology and status assessment, efficacy and safety of micronutrients interventions, program effectiveness, designing an enabling environment for micronutrients, and food systems. This monumental conference has also been made possible through the unwavering support and devotion of our board of directors, especially our board chair, Howard Bowie, and the generosity of the sponsors. And I would like to thank here our presenting sponsors, including USAID, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Kirk Humanitarian, Harvest Plus, and Sight and Life. But there's more than a robust program. We realized the importance of the Micronutrient Forum conference for all of you, but especially for all of you who are students or early in your career, to connect, engage, learn, and network. And we were very keen on selecting a technology that would allow for just that. Plenty of engagement opportunities and networking. So do take advantage of the Connected 2020 website or the app and connect within the community to catalyze relationships and spark ideas that may change the future of nutrition. So don't be shy, ask questions or introduce yourself in the chat during the live sessions, reach out to the presenters on the site, and engage in conversations and discussions happening on social media. Get involved, we encourage it. Last week, we held our Connect with the Experts series. These were 1-hour sessions limited to small groups with powerful conversations. Similarly, we will host learning centers next week to further your knowledge of a specific nutrition topic. And we hope you consider joining us next week. And we understand, of course, that all of these activities require hours in front of your computer. So we have created a few fun activities requiring you to break away from your keyboard. First, in partnership with Chef's Manifesto, learn how to prepare a simple breakfast or lunch packed with nutrients from Indian all-star chef Anahita in her cooking video available in the Micronutrient Forum's virtual booth. Next, and also available in our online space, Venemos do Samba's dance group from Angola will teach you the steps to the Jerusalema dance, a dance of hope during these challenging times. And we hope you will dance for nutrition with us. We welcome you to share pictures and videos of the meals you have prepared and show us your dance for nutrition moves on social media. Please also share experiences and thoughts during the conference on social media using the hashtag MNF2020. This online connected conference has the potential to be the best ever. And to that, let's get started with today's opening session, how to meet global micronutrient needs within sustainable food systems. The next slide, please. The ultimate goal of food systems is to lead to healthier and sustainable diets for everyone. And we know that micronutrients are a key component of healthy diets. The COVID-19 crisis has caused an additional challenge as the economic and food system shocks have made healthy diets even more out of reach for many. And added to this, climate change is interacting, affecting micronutrient levels in food crops and affecting the choices we can make to ensure healthy diets for all. While the food systems is incredibly complex, opportunities to improve micronutrient nutrition are available during many steps in the food system. Agriculture can deliver micronutrients into the food system through healthy soils and biofortified crops. Aquaculture can increase omega-3s and protein levels in a sustainable way. Food processing can add micronutrients through large-scale fortification schemes. And markets and retailers need to work on improving storage, preventing perishing or food waste, and can also help to retain micronutrients in food. The interaction between micronutrient nutrition, climate change, and sustainable food systems is extremely intricate and poorly understood. We know that what we eat impacts climate change, and we know that climate change reduces the micronutrient content of important food crops. However, we do not yet fully understand the implications of this reduction on dietary intakes and nutritional status of populations. What we do know is that good nutrition means better health for the whole family, improved performance at school, increased productivity for working adults, and illness prevention at all ages. Nutrition provides the opportunity to reach our maximum potential as humans. We will reflect on this during the remainder of this opening session and in subsequent live sessions during this week. And now I'm honored to introduce you to Lawrence Haddad of the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, GAIN. Lawrence, of course, does not require an introduction. He is the 2018 World Food Prize winner and the executive director of GAIN, and has done some of the pioneering work on integrating nutrition into sustainable food systems. He is the chair of the Action Track 1 of the UN Food Systems Summit 2021, ensuring access to safe and nutritious foods for all. And we couldn't think of a more suitable candidate to deliver this keynote speech and lead the panel of experts. Lawrence, over for you.
Thank you so much, Saskia. I can't see it. Can you see it? All right. Thank you, Saskia. That was a really nice introduction. I'm thrilled to be here, and congratulations to Howdy and yourself and Imorn and the government of Thailand for staging this event, and I know it's going to be a big, big success. I was asked to present on how to meet global micronutrient needs within sustainable food systems, challenges and opportunities. So not easy to do in 15 minutes, but I'll give it my best. So first of all, the challenges. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I want to rush through to the opportunities, but it's important to focus on the challenges ahead of us. I think, you know, the good news, first of all, is that as incomes rise, the demand for micronutrient-rich foods increases. And we see this. This is some work that one of my colleagues, Ty Beal, did, and it was showcased in the global panel report that came out a couple of months ago. And if you look at the right-hand side panel, you can see that foods, the micronutrient density of the food supply in East Asia has really increased a lot in the last couple of decades. And this is reflecting in many ways improved incomes, rising income levels. South Asia is the green bar on the right, and that's gone up a bit too. But if you look at sub-Saharan Africa, which is the orange bar, not much of an increase at all, and that's really quite worrying. So as incomes rise, micronutrients will become more available, but the bad news is that income rises for the poorest are slow. And COVID-19, as Saskia said, threatened to turn back the clock. Income rises don't always lead to the increase in the consumption of nutritious food. Sometimes there's a big lag, and that's usually because the supply response of nutritious foods is not keeping up. So their relative price increases. And as incomes rise, the consumption of foods that are not nutritious also increases. I'm thinking of highly processed, ultra-processed foods. And finally, as different components of the environment are compromised, different components of the environment are compromised and degraded by different types of choices in the production, processing, and consumption of food for different types of nutritious foods. So let me give you some data, some recent data on some of these things. So this is from the World Bank report that came out last month, October 2020. Poverty rates were falling pre-COVID-19, but very slowly in sub-Saharan Africa. And you can see that's the top line there. Look at East Asia. In 1990, the poverty rate in East Asia was higher than sub-Saharan Africa's, but it has plummeted in the 30 years after 1990. But sub-Saharan Africa's poverty rate is still really quite high, about 40%. South Asia has decreased quite significantly too. And that was pre-COVID. The bank estimates that poverty will rise due to COVID-19. The orange line is what would have happened in the absence of COVID. The two blue lines are the two different scenarios for what might happen as the COVID pandemic happens and the lockdowns happen if there are no mitigating circumstances. In addition to all of this, the poor are being priced out of nutrient adequate diets. These different colors represent the ratio of a cost of a minimally nutritionally adequate diet as a percent of household food expenditures. So the darker colors, especially the purple colors, the cost of a minimally nutrient adequate diet is the same as or more than average food expenditures per person. So clearly the cost of nutrient adequacy is a massive problem. A lot of people in a lot of countries don't even have the privilege of being able to afford to make the choices to get a healthy diet that many of us take for granted. And this is a really interesting chart as well. It's from the Global Panel report that came out in September. And it's really striking because if you look at the first two columns, these are the columns we're used to seeing. It says these two foods in 2010 and 2050, the animal source foods, which is the purple part, it says, look, these two foods are responsible for most of the greenhouse gas emissions. So, you know, in a simple way, if we can reduce the consumption of these kinds of foods in places where they're consumed at very high levels, that's got to be good for health, human health, and it's got to be good for greenhouse gases and the environment. But when you start looking at other dimensions of environmental well-being, cropland cover use, blue water use, nitrogen application, and phosphorus application, you can see that different kinds of foods have different contributions to these different environmental dimensions of well-being. So the health, what's good for health and what's good for planet is not quite as simple as we all think it is when we only look at greenhouse gas emissions. So this is going to be a very key dimension. I'll bring this up in a minute later on. So let's look at some of the opportunities. 2021 is going to be a big year. It's a big chance for big change. We've got the Nutrition for Growth Summit in 2021 in December in Tokyo. We've got the Food System Summit in September in 2021. Here we have the chance to think big and make changes that are not just incremental changes, but changing the rules of the game. And we need to find or create powerful levers of change. This picture is a picture of a bunch of levers that are used to change the direction of railroad tracks. So it's kind of a low-tech, old world lever, but I like it because it basically refers to tracks. And many of us feel that the food system is really on the wrong track. It's doing well at generating wealth. It's doing well at supplying calories, although not as well as it should be, but it's not doing a great job in generating health, and it's not doing a great job of preventing environmental degradation. It's also terribly unequal, lots of inequality throughout it. So we need to find the levers that are going to change that and put it on the right track. And luckily for us, there are many levers, and I've listed some of them here. I'll go through them very quickly. So the power of legislation. This is a very recent story from the Economic Times in India. The government of India, through the Food Standards and Safety Agency for India, is considering, and I understand very likely to pass legislation that will make it mandatory to fortify edible oil and milk with vitamin A and vitamin D. And if this happens, it will lead to an extra 500 million people consuming vitamin A and vitamin D. If that isn't a game-changing action, then I don't know what is. That's the power of legislation. The power of policy. Look at this graph. This is from the World Bank very recently. And because of COVID-19, but anyway, this trend was happening, more and more people are now becoming enrolled in social protection programs. This is either cash transfer programs, conditional or unconditional, or food transfer programs. Now 1.8 billion, our friends at the World Bank tell us 1.8 billion people are enlisted in social protection programs. The numbers going up is the number of countries and the number of schemes. And the number of countries is the gray, number of schemes is the orange line. Rapid increase in the number of these programs. But when we had a look at which ones are actually connected to nutritious food, either through stimulating production or stimulating consumption, very few of them were. Here is a massive opportunity for us to leverage policy change to make sure that nutritious foods are stimulated both on the production side and the consumption side. How about the power of innovation? Well, I wish I had real numbers to share with you, but I don't. But this is a sort of a what-if scenario. This is agricultural R&D, either at the global international agricultural research center level or at the national level. What do we know about what these different scenarios look like? Agricultural R&D allocated to non-biofortified staples, which is the light blue, biofortified staples, the purple, plants that are non-staples, the green, and animal source foods. We don't really know what this looks like for the CGIAR, for example. We think it looks more like the bar on the left. But let's entertain the idea that there could be different allocations. What is the implication of that for the availability and affordability of nutritious foods? We don't know, and we need to know answers to these kinds of questions. And the power of innovation is is massive here. The potential is absolutely massive. What about the power of private sector finance? So the Global Impact Investing Network, GIIN, says there is a $200 billion impact investing industry. This is where investors invest in enterprises that they want to get a return on their funding, but they also want to get a social return on their funding. So there's a $200 billion industry, right? The GIIN says about 18 billion of that is going to Africa. About 6 billion of that 18 billion is going to food and agriculture. And we again have estimated that about 200 million of that goes to nutritious foods in Africa for domestic consumption. That's 0.1% of the total envelope of impact investing that's out there. So we again, together with our fund managers partner Incofin, have set up something called the Nutritious Food Financing Facility to support small and medium enterprises that are producing, distributing, marketing, storing, selling nutritious foods for domestic consumption in Africa. It's a drop in the ocean at 60 million. We need 100 of these, but it's a beginning. The power of consumers. I took this screenshot on October the 31st because I take Saskia's deadlines for PowerPoints very, very seriously. But here's in Bangladesh, these are the number of adolescents that have taken a pledge to eat well, live well. It's now over 1 million. It was 998,000 when I took the screenshot. It's an eat well, live well pledge in adolescents, and these are adolescents who have said to them, they've organized themselves through a youth movement in Bangladesh, and they've signed up to this pledge, and they're basically saying to the government and to a business in Bangladesh, we are committed to spending our pocket money, the little we get, on healthy foods. What are you and the government going to do about it? And what are you as small enterprises, small and medium enterprises and businesses, what are you going to do about it? This is very, very powerful. Businesses see a massive opportunity for future customers, and governments are really paying attention to this collective youth voice because these folks, after all, are going to be future voters. What about the power of research? This is a table we did for a paper looking at the implications of choices around different animal source foods. So the columns are different animal source foods, dairy, eggs, fish, etc., meat. And the rows are the outcomes we care about. We care about health outcomes, environmental outcomes, and livelihood outcomes. And the cells, green means good, and red means not good. And everything in between is we don't really know. And there's lots of question marks there, but this is showing you how complex it is to say something sensible or unequivocal about if you increase the consumption of eggs, it's good for health, it's good for the environment, it's good for livelihoods. It really depends on the context, and most of the research that's summarized through systematic reviews in this table is done in high-income countries. And we know the business models are going to be very different in low-income countries and middle-income countries. So researchers, give us tables like this for low and middle-income countries. Power of civil society. This young man is a very famous footballer in the UK and beyond. His name's Marcus Rashford. This is a petition that he started on ending child food poverty in the United Kingdom, and it's trying to get the UK government to extend free school meals that kids get when they go to schools, make sure they get those meals outside of schools in the Christmas holidays because so many people are unemployed in the UK. He set up this pledge. When I did this slide on October 31st, the government had not yielded to this petition. Last Saturday, they yielded, and they've changed, and they're now going to do this. They're going to provide free school meals for kids in outside of schools over the Christmas holidays. So civil society is very powerful. And I love this example because it uses a very low-tech, very long-standing mechanism, a petition, to show the depth and the breadth of feeling about this issue. Finally, the power of you. I'm often asked, what can I do? Well, I'm a big believer in the power of one. These are two winners of the Food System Dashboard, which is something that Hopkins, FAO, and GAIN, and a bunch of other partners have created to help policymakers and others navigate food systems. And we set up a prize for interesting uses of this dashboard. And these two folks, Jane and Riley, were two of the winners. And I've highlighted them, because they're young winners of this competition, but they were using the dashboard to teach kids between the ages of 8 and 11 about nutrition, about what micronutrients mean, about what a food system looks like, about where their food comes from, about the journey it goes on, and about the consequences and benefits of healthy diets and the consequences of unhealthy diets. And I love this because these people are making a big difference. But ultimately, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, it's about the power of us. And we all have to work together to change food systems. We can and we must. And 2021 is the best opportunity we will have for the next 10 years. Thank you very much, Saskia. I hope you heard that.
Yes, thank you. That was a great presentation, Lawrence. It is encouraging to know that there are many opportunities ahead of us to make commitments for sustainable changes in the food system. And how all of us, whether we work in policy, research, finance, the private sector innovations, or civil society, or simply as being just us, we can become a powerful lever of change, as you said. So to continue this conversation and address some of the challenges food systems are facing, from feeding the growing population and climate change, and providing nutrient-rich foods to people in low and middle-income countries in an affordable way, I now invite you, Lawrence, to introduce our expert opening panel and lead the discussions. Lawrence, back to you.
Thank you, Saskia. And we have a really fantastic panel for you, folks. Their job over the next 45 minutes or so is to, talk a bit about this topic: how to meet global micronutrient needs within sustainable food systems. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? I'm going to introduce them as I ask them a question. So I won't do all of the introductions at the same time. I'm going to start with my colleague, Dr. Francesco Branca. Dr. Branca is the director of the Department of Nutrition and Food Safety at the World Health Organization. Many of you know him, he's been a strong leader in the nutrition space. He was the lead organizer of the Second International Conference on Nutrition. He's a strong champion of the UN Decade of Action. He's been very active in the SUN Scaling Up Nutrition Executive Committee. He was the president of the Federation of the European Nutrition Societies from 2003 to 2007. And I didn't know this about him. He graduated in medicine and surgery and specialized in diabetology and metabolic diseases at the Catholic University in Rome. And he obtained a PhD in nutrition at Aberdeen University. Francesco, it's really easy when we focus on food systems to forget about the other systems. And the health system is obviously one of the key systems when it comes to determining malnutrition outcomes in all their forms. Tell us a bit about some of the opportunities and challenges when it comes to creating synergies between health systems and food systems for addressing micronutrient malnutrition. Over to you, Francesco.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for the introduction, and I really enjoyed your keynote. I wish to congratulate the Micronutrient Forum for this brilliant convening. So in response to your question, Lawrence, let me share with you two challenges and two opportunities. First of all, as you already mentioned, we're not on track to achieving global nutrition targets. Just to give the example of anemia, there's been no progress since 2011, and increased prevalence has in fact been seen in sub-Saharan Africa. COVID-19 has made things worse for the disruption of food and health services, with projected negative impacts on wasting, stunting, and anemia. The only piece of good news here is that anemia reduction has now been added to the list of targets for SDG 2. Second, the challenge of unsuccessful programs. There are some things that we have done in the past that have proven unsuccessful, and we have to unlearn. These are the siloed approach. Evidence shows that multi-sectoral efforts yield more results and increase iron supplementation adherence, we cannot consider food fortification and supplementation programs as alternatives to one another. Programs should not only worry about deficiencies. In today's world, we need to pay equal attention to undernutrition and obesity. We need to have double duty action throughout. But let me tell you about the two opportunities I see. First, some countries have been able to show successful improvements of anemia rates, for example. WHO has just published a review on global anemia reduction efforts among women of reproductive age, impact achievement of targets, and the way forward for optimizing efforts. And the review indicates that multi-sectoral approaches and women's empowerment are more likely to lead to progress. The review also shows that sensitization of the general community and of men on gender equity would contribute to better outcomes in anemia reduction. This works for all age groups and most of the interventions, such as vitamin A supplementation and breastfeeding. Second, we now have the channels to activate coordinated programs in the health, food systems, and social protection with common objectives. In health, we have clarity about the essential nutrition actions that include several micronutrient interventions, and we have the adequate delivery platforms, such as antenatal care. We need to deliver them at scale. In food systems, food supply and for the environment need to make healthy diets accessible and affordable to all people in the world. How can we sustain a world in which 3 billion people are left out? In social protection, as you indicated, we have successful models of delivery in which nutrition improvement is a critical and specific objective. Food, health, and social protection system should be aligned for nutrition. Health should not be an afterthought, as COVID has made it very clear. We need to design and implement programs well, and we need to use data for that. We will need more and better data on vitamins and minerals that need to be accessible and understandable to all. We should seize these opportunities now, taking advantage of the Food Systems Summit and the Nutrition for Growth Summit, advocating for investment in and commitments for nutrition for the next 5 years of the Decade of Action in Nutrition and 10 years of the Decade of Action on Sustainable Development. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Francesco. That was great. And I really like the fact that you aligned us. You said, look, food systems, health systems, social protection systems, and efforts to improve women's empowerment, all of those things have to be lined up. When we get them lined up, we kind of hit the jackpot when it comes to healthy diets. Thank you for that. And now I'd like to turn to Schengen. Schengen Fan. And Dr. Schengen Fan is currently a chair professor at the College of Economics and Management and Dean of Academy of Global Food Economics and Policy at China Agricultural University. And prior to joining the university, Schengen served as the Director General of the International Food Policy Research Institute from 2009 to 2019. And he serves as a member of the UN's lead group for the Scaling Up Nutrition Movement, and he's advisor to many national governments on agriculture, food security, and nutrition. And he was a member, vice chair, and chair of the Food and Nutrition Council of the World Economic Forum. And I'm grateful to have been able to count him as a colleague when I was at IFPRI as well. So Schengen, nice to have you here. Schengen, you're an expert on lots of things, but on food policies, you know a lot. And so we hear a lot about, there's a lot of talk about if only we repurposed all these food subsidies and price policies, we could incentivize the production and supply of nutritious foods that are rich in micronutrients like vegetables, beans, fruits, nuts, eggs, fish, poultry, etc. What does the policy research tell us about this potential benefit? Is it really there, or is it a pipe dream? Schengen, over to you.
Well, thank you, Lawrence. Let me first congratulate the Micronutrient Forum for organizing such an important event despite the challenges of COVID-19. Yes, every day at this moment, the world is spending $1.6 billion on agriculture subsidies. And these subsidies are not economically efficient. $1 investment is not going to have $1 return. These subsidies also are not environmentally sustainable, but they use more water, more land, need to overuse of fertilizers, pesticides, and so on, so creating lots of environmental challenges. And clearly, they also do not produce healthy, nutritious foods because most of the subsidies are targeted for producing more rice, wheat, and maize, and particularly refined rice, wheat, and maize. So this subsidies definitely needs to be reformed or needs to be repurposed. We know that investment has much higher returns. So my study at IPRI on India and China, then later on IPRI's research in Africa clearly shows that investment in infrastructure in R&D have much higher returns. For example, agriculture research, $1 invested, return could be 10 times. Infrastructure equally could be 10 times. And within agriculture research, the investment in nutrition, let's say Harvest Plus, or even fortification can lead to 30 times higher returns. So clearly, the returns to investment to R&D in nutrition have much higher, are much higher than subsidies, purely subsidies. Now, why is that? One is the political economy issues, lack of information, lack of data, and the politicians always try to use subsidies as a way to attract farmers' support in their political campaigns. I was in India doing research in India for many years, and the politicians said, well, we do provide support to farmers by giving them subsidies. But the evidence, IPRI study shows that these subsidies actually do not generate much higher income for farmers. Could you imagine when the subsidies are there, production goes up, prices goes down. So the farmers actually do not benefit from the subsidies. Now, so the data information communication is so critical. Lawrence mentioned about lack of data on R&D research. So here in China, so Lawrence mentioned about my new academy here. One of my first jobs is to look at R&D investment. R&D investment in let's say, in yield enhancement, in nutrition, in climate change, in natural resource management, because we take the food system as the way for resetting the research priorities. The first thing we must know, where do we invest in R&D? We wanted to find out using the food system approach, not just the production side, the whole value chain, the nutrition, the health, environment, climate change, and beyond. Now, I think COVID-19 is really a crisis, but could also be an opportunity to repurpose some of the subsidies. Many countries have launched big stimulus package, and part of that has been used for producing more food. I think it's a great opportunity to really look at how can we really repurpose, reprioritize, or prioritize the stimulus package, the stimulus funds, to make sure that nutrition and health are the priorities, to make sure that sustainability is part of the investment priorities. So we call it growing better by providing more nutritious, healthy foods, and by improving environment and mitigating the climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Shengen. I really liked your point about how evidence, if you want to chip away at the political economy and the vested interests, you have to show what might be, what would happen if we repurposed, as you said, some of these subsidies, and that at least gives people a basis for countering the vested interest. And I really look forward to the work you were telling us about in China. And I also agree with you, COVID-19 is a massive opportunity in many ways. The unthinkable becomes thinkable, and the undoable becomes doable. So thank you, Shengen, for those reflections. Our next speaker is Dr. Anna Lati. Many of you know Dr. Anna Lati. She's the Director of Nutrition and Food Systems Division at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN since 2013. And prior to that, she was a professor of nutrition at the University of Ghana. And Anna was honored with the Ghana Women of Excellence Award in 2012, and she was the recipient of the Sight and Life Nutrition Leadership Award for 2014. And she's the immediate past president of the International Union of Nutrition Sciences. And Anna was awarded an honorary Doctor of Science by McGill a couple of years ago. Anna, the SOFI report, the State of Food Insecurity report that came out, I think, in September, this headline number really shocked me. It suggested that 3 billion people can't afford a healthy diet, and nearly 1 billion of those 3 live in Africa, and that represents 3/4 of the total population of Africa. And as the report made clear, the most vulnerable are the most likely to not have access to healthy diets. So are there any solutions that will work for the most vulnerable, taking into account the new challenges due to COVID-19? Over to you, Anna.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, for this question. And before I go on, I'd like to also add my voice to those of my colleagues who have spoken earlier in thanking the Micronutrient Forum for such an excellent forum for us to discuss this very important topic. Lawrence, the figure that has been put up, 3 billion people not having access to healthy diet, about more than 40% of the world's population, very unfortunate. And we should not say this, in fact, we should say this with a lot of sadness, that people cannot get the good food they need to have a healthy life. I think that is very sad in this day and age, 2020, people cannot get good food. It's very unfortunate. The first thing I want to mention is that, you know, it is the responsibility of governments to ensure that their citizens have access to healthy diets. Because by not paying attention, the cost is too high, too high for them to just let go. So governments have that responsibility. One, we have seen, as was mentioned by Schengen, that there are a lot of high benefits in addressing malnutrition. The Copenhagen Consensus has consistently shown that by addressing micronutrient deficiencies, this is a cost-effective intervention that can give good benefits, and we should really look at that. I think that we should look at addressing this situation in the short term and then the long term. There are people who are not getting enough, not getting healthy diet. Now, what do we need to do? They cannot afford it. They don't have the money to afford it. What do we need to do? I think that we have immediate solutions that can be looked at. One, they are eating certain foods. Governments can immediately put in place, you know, the power you're talking about, the power of governments, legislation. Fortify the foods they are normally eating. I think that will be the cheapest way they can get the nutrients in their diets. The cheapest way. Make sure that we can get the nutrients in the foods that they normally eat. You gave the example of oil fortification. Other places they have flour fortification and all. This is just one example that we can quickly address the problem. A short, medium-term intervention. But these fortification products should not be promoted in isolation. We should not make this replace the healthy diets that the people need. It should just be a complement. Okay, it's a short-term solution. We also know that a lot of research has made available some crops that are biofortified. We know that the orange fresh, sweet potatoes, the sorghum, the millet, which have high zinc, high iron, it's also a good intervention because in many of the areas we are talking about, even in Africa, they are already consuming these products. How can we let them consume the ones with nutrient rich, that are nutrient rich, the biofortified ones, okay, in the interim, whilst we work on making sure that they have access to the healthy diets they want. So again, this must not be promoted in isolation. It should be promoted within the context of a complementary holistic diet. Now, the other thing that can be done is, you mentioned the social protection measures, such as cash transfers. These should be linked to nutritious foods. And research has shown, recent research has shown that, you know, they have found these food and cash transfers to be highly effective in supporting the poor in the short term. You know, we should not be, again, content with these social protection measures. People want to have their dignity, to be able to say that I worked, I made money and I fed myself well, not always sitting to be fed and giving money. You know, so we should look at the long-term interventions that will take people out of this cap and hand into a situation where they can really have their dignity in getting what they want to eat in a healthy way. So I think that we should again come back to governments. Government should put in place policies that will align to the aspirations of the healthy diet that we are talking about. Schengen mentioned the nutrition, the crops, you know, the focus on staple crops. That's fine, but we should now make sure that we are producing the healthy foods we want people to eat: fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts. Now, these are abundant in Africa. We have a lot of these. Why should Africans go not be able to afford a healthy diet? So the policies should make these foods available. Now, we also need to look at smallholder farmers. These foods are produced by smallholder farmers, but very often they are not given fair prices. These foods are very perishable. They need opportunities to be able to make these foods available all year round. So that means they need support. I think this is a situation where government and private sector can link up to actually make sure that some of these nutritious foods are available all year round. We need to create jobs for the people who don't have, make farming attractive so the young, the youth can go into farming. And finally, you mentioned consumers. Let's empower consumers to ask for the nutritious diet they need to have a healthy life. Thank you very much, Lawrence, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Anna. Sorry to cut you short, but very powerful, reminding us that governments have a solemn duty, to the duty of care to their citizens, and healthy diets is absolutely fundamental to that duty of care. You also reminded us, don't take things in isolation. Don't take components of diet in isolation. Don't take parts of the food system in isolation. And you also reminded us that governments, businesses, civil society, and consumers all have a role to play. Thank you, Anna, for that injection of passion and power and justice. I'd now like to turn to Rob. Dr. Rob Bertram. Rob is the Chief Scientist in USAID's Bureau for Resilience and Food Security, and he serves as a key advisor on a range of technical and program issues to advance global food security and nutrition. And he's been a long-time champion and a very effective one of food security and nutrition. In this role at USAID, he leads their evidence-based efforts to advance research, technology, and implementation in support of the government's global hunger and food security initiative, Feed the Future. Rob, food systems and the production of micronutrient-rich foods, they're both culprits and victims of greenhouse gas emissions. Tell us a bit about how shifts in climate and weather will affect our ability to produce food and ensure high nutrient content, and what new developments are promising to have climate resilient, nutritious food production. Rob, over to you.
Thank you, Lawrence. And like others, I'm delighted to be part of the Micronutrient Forum. It's a great opportunity. If we think about the parts of the world where micronutrient nutrition is already deficiency, is already very high, these are also the parts of the world these parts of the world also face major climate challenges now. The good news is that the things we can do to adapt to those and meet those challenges can also be very positive in delivering a climate resilient food system in the long term that meets micronutrient needs for all. One of the things we know is that atmospheric levels of carbon dioxide are rising, and we know there's mounting evidence to suggest that that's going to negatively impact the concentration of key nutrients in many of our staple grains and foods. The good news is, and Anna has just mentioned this, that biofortification is a tool that can not only deliver benefits now through the provision of foods richer in zinc, iron, and beta carotene in particular, but also help climate-proof those same foods for the future to ensure that we don't see losses in significant losses in the quality of those foods in terms of their micronutrient content. I think the big thing we think about around climate change is water, either not enough of it or too little of it. And we know that droughts and floods are expected to become more frequent. And yet, when we think about micronutrient-rich foods, water is an essential piece of that, right? We can think of fruits and vegetables, 90% water, animal source foods, eggs, dairy, meat, and eggs, all require substantial amounts of water to produce. And of course, fish are all about water and other aquatic foods, and yet they're also among the most climate-friendly options in terms of the greenhouse gas emission per unit of quality food produced. This is one of the reasons that USAID and other investors are partnering with countries in many parts of the world to promote the idea of small-scale irrigation, or also known as farmer-led irrigation. And this can be transformative because it can drive diversification, including in the off-season, the dry season, into fruits and vegetables, poultry, livestock, and fodder. And remember, when we improve feed quality, this is actually a climate-friendly investment because livestock thrive and grow faster with quality food. So you're having less food feed going to maintenance, and you're more going to the provision of meat, milk, and other nutritious foods. Another option for trying to expand the use of small-scale irrigation is through solar irrigation. The price point is coming down, the durability is going up, and this can be part of an overall effort around resource use efficiency that tries to derive more profit from every drop of water. Even when we're using diesel pumps, there's ways we can try to improve the climate, reduce the emissions intensity associated with their use. So this is a huge opportunity for smallholders to tap into growing demands for quality diets from cities and towns, diversifying into high nutrient foods, making quality diets more available and affordable to low-income consumers, be they in rural or urban settings. So this is a huge win where nutrition and poverty alleviation can go together. Also worth noting, none of these foods that I've talked about are the drivers of a negative dietary transition. These are not the fats and oils or sugars, but they are knowledge-intensive value chains. There are high quality demands. We know the post-harvest losses, which are very non-climate friendly, can be significant in these higher nutrition commodities. And of course, there are issues around the safe use of any kinds of inputs. So also important to underscore that here's a key place where nutrition and food safety are going to go together. Are you coming in?
I'm sorry, I have to cut you off.
That's fine.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I think it's really interesting you highlighted the circularity of a lot of the work that USAID is doing in terms of circular economy and reusing electricity, reusing water. I think that's really fascinating. And you also mentioned diversity. So thank you, Rob. I now need to move to Dr. Usha Bawale-Zare. She's the Director and Chief Technology Officer at Maharashtra Hybrid Seeds Company in India. She received her PhD at the University of Illinois at Urbana, and she has been serving the smallholder farmers in her state and beyond for the last 21 years, utilizing new technologies and tools, including biotechnologies, for improving quality and productivity of seeds. Usha, let me turn to you. Mako, your company, produces seeds of a variety of crops. What role has the private sector played in providing this important input, and how does technology influence farmers' decisions? Over to you, Usha.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, and it's a pleasure to be here at the Micronutrient Forum. It's a little beyond my area of expertise, so I feel a little nervous about that, but I would like to talk a little bit about how the smallholder farmers are playing a critical role in providing food, and what things we can do to enhance the nutritional quality. Seed is an input which is critical for productivity, I know other speakers have talked about productivity, and I would like to talk about productivity from a smallholder perspective. Mahiko as a company focuses on delivering high-yielding quality seeds to the millions of smallholder farmers that we serve. And there are a number of private seed companies in India and around the world who provide this very valuable input. In India alone, more than 230 million smallholder farmers. And when I say smallholder farmers, farmers with farm sizes of less than 2 hectares, grow these improved seeds. And I also like to point out that when we talk about smallholder farmers as producers, they're not just producers, but also consumers. So in our area in central India, in rural Maharashtra, a typical farmer's lunch will consist of only 2 items, or maybe 3. It'll be a bread which is made from sorghum or wheat. There might be a piece of raw onion or green chilies or a pickle. Now, this is the typical diet that a farmer has. While the farmer is still growing a diverse crop range on their farms that they have, and typically a farmer is growing more than 2 crops in this small 2 hectare plot. So the big thing that I want to also point out that the smallholder farmers are very keen to get improved high quality material for planting because it directly influences what would be their income from the production that they would get. And the private sector in India has been able to reach all corners of the country with the diverse array and offering of the different crops. Typically, from the Green Revolution days, I would say our focus had been on improving productivity, and which still remains a focus for us for 2-3 reasons. In addition to that, we also focus on quality, but not quality necessarily from the nutritional criteria, but quality which is commercially relevant for the farmer. So it may deal with transportability of the vegetables, it may deal with the consistency of the size of the vegetables. And only in the recent 5 to 7 years, I would say that we have started to actually focus on traits which are relevant from a micronutrient or nutritional balance perspective. And why the focus on productivity? Productivity has been in focus because the farmers, for adoption of any new tools or technology, have focused on what is the value that they derive from the new seed that they will plant. And this value could be in the form of drought tolerance, it could be in the form of nutrient use efficiency in terms of fertilizer. And while the farmers also see value by growing a diverse crop portfolio on their land, such as vegetables and fruits, but then it has a direct linkage to the markets which they have access to and a somewhat assured minimum price which they would get for that product. So while the farmers are very keen to grow vegetables and fruits, the market linkages in many cases are not present.
So you've got 20 seconds left, Usha.
Okay. So just wanted to focus on the regenerative agriculture practices, which have been worked on in terms of microbial treatments and also agronomy practices, which enhance, which mitigate greenhouse gas emission, and agriculture as a solution rather than a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Usha. Sorry to rush you through, and I'm really pleased that you gave us a smallholder farmer perspective, and you reminded us that smallholder farmers are businesses. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to pass to Mauricio Adade. Mauricio is the president of Latin America and Global Malnutrition Partnerships and Programs at Royal DSM. He is a national of Brazil, a food engineer, graduated from State University of Campinas. He's got a master's degree in business administration from Sao Paulo, and he is combining his role as president of Global Malnutrition and Partnerships and Programs with his previous role as chairman of the board of Africa Improved Foods in Africa. His key responsibility is to actively develop and implement effective public-private and other partnerships and new business models addressing malnutrition around the globe. Mauricio, COVID-19 has really disrupted food systems and incomes the world over, and production and consumption of fresh foods rich in micronutrients have suffered. How do we fill that growing micronutrient gap with fortified staple foods and do it in a way that is responsible and doesn't undermine the fresh food sectors? Over to you.
Thank you, Lawrence, and thank you very much. It's going to be a challenge to be the last one speaking after these brilliant speakers before me, but I'll try my best. And fantastic! I want to congratulate the Micronutrient Forum, Saskia, and the organizing committee that we have this sad news that we cannot make it physically in Thailand, but you transformed this in an opportunity, and more than 3,000 people participating. Excellent. Now to your question, Lawrence. Yeah, perhaps I would like to, if you allow me, reframe a bit slightly, because at the end of the day, I don't believe that we are in competition. There is no competition between fortified food and fresh foods. Should not be competition. We know that this is about supplementing and making available, affordable, and accessible nutritious foods to everyone in this planet. And I think, we cannot just look into the diets in a different way. We should be focusing in make this happen. And there are many ways to do it. You don't have to see it as a competition. Malnutrition is really a global issue. Yeah, and according to the experts, that the percentage that we have of malnutrition can easily double due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But I would like to take 3 topics here very quickly and allow me to elaborate on these 3. The first one is about the importance of food fortification. The second one is related to the role of the industry in the overall food value chain. And the third one is partnership, why we need this. So let's start with the food fortification. Food fortification is not the silver bullet in order to address the issue that we have of malnutrition, of hidden hunger. But I think it's a very cost-effective intervention that fill in the growing nutrient gap. However, we need to bring it to scale, otherwise there is no impact. Food fortification has been proved already, and perhaps people will say, why you want to remind us about this? Because sometimes we need to remind us that food fortification has been proven, like iodine in salt, like fortifying wheat and corn flour, fortifying milk, and as has been said, fortifying edible oil. So it has been proven. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just need to make sure that the wheel is there and we apply the wheel in making fortified foods something that is in our projects, in the government projects, but also having everyone in the social society making sure that this is taking place. Staple foods are normally the first place that when you have a challenging in economics that people go for finding their nutrients. However, if they are not fortified, then we have always this gap in giving what is so-called the energy, but not giving the necessary micronutrients. And for that reasons, we need to consider this as a possibility and something that we need to take a huge responsibility. Large-scale food fortification is critical, really critical to fight malnutrition in general, but even more during the global pandemic. Yeah, and it can deliver the immune nutrients that strengthen collectively the overall ability to fight and recover for infections. So from that perspective, we also need to think about that the micronutrients are important. Now to the point number 2, highlighting the role of the industry.
You have 30 seconds left, Mauricio.
Okay, thank you. Significant power and responsibility need to be taken from that. This is I'm paying the price will be the last one, sorry. From that perspective, industry is very much responsible for everything related to innovation, research and development, understanding consumers, also linking to the farmers. And the last point, importance of doing it together. It has been said already, but I think, one important point I want to make, we always need somebody to orchestrate that. We need to have somebody who makes easier all the different sides of our society to work together and make it happen. And just to finalize it, Lawrence, my call to action. I think it's great that we have great discussions, but at the end of the day, we need to act. I think 80-20 rule should apply. because we are far away from being and achieving the SDGs objectives. And guess what? It's not getting easier with COVID-19. So let's act now. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Mauricio. Really appreciate you sticking to time so well. I didn't give you any less time than anyone else. Thank you. I think we've got time for about 10 minutes or 8 minutes of Q&A, and we've got some questions lined up, and I'm going to direct them to people. So there's a question from Bonnie M, who says, we haven't heard about the safety of micronutrient-rich foods yet. I'd appreciate hearing from one of the speakers about how we bring in food safety. Francesco, that sounds like you.
Thank you. This is a very important question. And we have, in fact, systems to monitor the safety of having multiple sources of micronutrients. I think at the moment there's no concern about exceeding those levels of safety, but we do need to have systems in place to monitor that. We also need to have the methodologies to do that kind of assessment. WHO has been working on that kind of approach and methodology. So it is indeed an important point. I think we need to work more on some of the chemical forms of the nutrients to improve the accessibility, the bioavailability of some of the nutrients, which would then allow us to use amounts in a safer way.
Thank you, Francesco. There's a question from Lalita B, which basically says, if policies could focus on nutrient density of foods and the nutrient returns to the money spent, we'd be in a much better place. But this seems quite far-fetched. Anna, what do you think of that? If policies could focus on nutrient density.
Thank you very much, Lalita, for this question. I think, as we mentioned, in the interim, we have a big problem. We need to solve it. So in the interim, we can look at policies trying to quickly fill the gap and provide these nutrient-rich foods. But in the long term, we should not make this, we should really expand it and make sure that everybody gets access to the healthy diets they need. So the policy should not only end with just providing nutrients, must go beyond that and look at how can we make food and healthy food available to everyone. That should be where we all want to get to.
Thank you, Anna. There's a question from Sophia S, which I'm gonna direct part of it to Mauricio, but it basically says the mandatory legislation for fortification in India, it could be problematic if it's not based on science, and if it and there's allegations of conflict of interest. So in any PPP, you get these allegations. On the unscientific side, it relates to the overdose question. I think we'll get some follow-up answers to you from people like Lynette Neufeld and Rainer Engelstone. But on the conflict of interest issue, Mauricio, do you want to quickly weigh in on that?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think we have said this before, it's about working together. And yeah, there are sometimes perhaps it seems to be conflict of interest, but at the end of the day, it has to be science-based. And science has already proven that, I mean, for addressing malnutrition, and also what has been said by Anna, yeah, the quickest way, very effective way is going to do a program for food fortification. Now, it's quite important to have this well done with the adequate micronutrients, also balancing out what is bioavailability and the safety of the products. So from that perspective, science there, it has been proven, and we need to put down, I mean, this conflict of interest using always scientific ways to do the food fortification.
Thank you. Question here from Raj Kumar. Is biofortification always done using traditional breeding, and is biotechnology or GMOs safe for consumption? Rob, nice easy one from you.
Well, first of all, no, it's not always done using GMOs, but we can use many molecular tools to help concentrate traits that improve nutrient density in classical breeding as well. In some cases, for example, iron in rice, beta carotene or provitamin A in rice, we have had to look for the opportunities around transgenic approaches. But this is not a given, but it is certainly an opportunity, and there's no evidence to suggest that any of these changes would have any effect on the safety of any of these foods. Thanks, Lawrence.
And I think I have to close it up. I'm getting the eyes from Saskia and others that we need to close it down. But there's one final question that I'll take here from Steve V. Says we can't do everything everywhere at the same time. What are the top 3 priorities for action? I think the first priority is to wake everybody up to the damage that unhealthy diets are doing to the health system, to the environment. I think not enough policymakers recognize this. They've been focused on getting rid of hunger for so long, and of course hunger is still with us, 690 million people and rising, but they've been focused on that for so long. They need to fight on 2 fronts, hunger and unhealthy foods, because that way they'll fight environmental degradation as well as health system strains. That's the first thing. I think the second thing we need to do is provide policymakers with the support they need, the data they need, the priority setting mechanisms they need. Food systems are incredibly complex. You can do 100 different things. Every context will be different. Every district, every city, every province, every state, every community will have its own food system, and where to start is the key. But the only thing we can do as outsiders is provide the tools and the guidance for looking holistically, systemically, and saying, these are the first 3 things that need to be done first, because they will then unlock all the other things that need to happen. But the only thing we can say with certainty is that no one ministry can do this, and even the government on its own cannot do this. It's a whole of society systemic effort. And I come back to the point I made at the end of my talk. The power of us is absolutely paramount. So I'd like to thank the speakers and the panelists. I'd like to thank the questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to more of them. I'm sure there will be written answers to many of them. And Saskia, thank you for giving us the opportunity. Back to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Lawrence, and thank you, panel, for this engaging conversation and some powerful statements on how we can bring nutrition and healthy diets in a sustainable way in food systems, how we can deliver this, and addressing all the challenges that we face, especially now with COVID and from a global perspective. So I would now like to introduce to you Imorn Udomkasmali. And she is a respected voice, a colleague, and a friend in the nutrition community. And she will summarize this discussion and share her perspectives. Currently, Imorn is the senior advisor of the Institute of Nutrition at Mahidol University in Thailand, and an adjunct associate professor at Johns Hopkins University, Bloomberg School of Public Health. She is also the board chair of the International Food Policy Research Institute and a board member of the Sight and Life Foundation and the Micronutrient Forum. We are fortunate to have her here on our team and also on our local organizing committee, as she brings a wealth of knowledge, experience, and insight to the table. So Imorn, over to you.
Okay, sorry, that's some technical thing. Thank you very much, Saskia, for that kind introduction. It's an honor to be here, and I really would like to also thank all of the team that makes it possible that we can still connect it and all over the world. And this is a global conference, so that is important. I have been tasked with such a challenge to try and summarize this whole session, which I really think is very rich, and I want to thank all of the speakers and also panelists who has made this a wonderful session. There's a few things that I'd like to say is my takeaway messages, and I would encourage also all the audience that because this is being recorded, that you can visit again just to find out more details of certain things. I want to start by saying that, number one, our expectation for the food system to deliver healthy and also sustainable diet is a tall order. The things that we have to consider, and what has already been said, is the journey of micronutrients from the origin where food comes from, through transportation, to manufacturing, to the market, to the consumers and the household to nourish themselves. This is all the value chains that we have to consider. And there are opportunities to retain micronutrients in those food supply. The other thing that I think we need to know is the interaction about what micronutrients, climate, and sustainable food system really look like. There are more to be done on that. One of the factors that bring all this to us is the COVID-19. The COVID-19 has laid bare the weakness of many systems, including food system. And it tells us where the challenges are, how to open an opportunity for us to take a look at that and fix it. It is a test, and we have been asked to do that. What I want to frame my core message has to do with what Lawrence has put us to, and the panelists has enlisted that. So my attempt is to bring you both in combination. How do I see this? Well, the challenge that was put in front of us has to do with the income issue. As we see high demand of micronutrient-rich foods when you have higher income, it really has an implication. And that income does not guarantee healthy diets on the table. Lots of times, people buy those that are less than good health, less nutrient. And some of this actually does not only pertain to the rich family, actually the house of the poor, the urban poor who cannot find anything, they will have to go for some of those processed food. The problem that we have is the micronutrient-rich diet that comes at a price, and that price is beyond the reach of the poor. It keeps coming back to us. The malnutrition in all its forms, both under and overnutrition and micronutrient, in both of those scenarios, we call them multiple burden now of malnutrition. This actually is a symptom that is linked to poverty, and that we have to find an opportunity to do something about. The opportunities that has been put in front of us, and I really like that, the power of change depends on where you can address it. And that power of change brings us to a few opportunities. I want to also put front some of the of what Lawrence has very much put to us, is that the certain thing that we can do is to recognize some of the opportunity that we can do a game changer. So what Francesco said about the opportunity, that this is where we could see food, health, social protection, all these systems come together to strengthen. Strengthen what? To strengthen better that we can deliver healthy diet and sustainability, and also to the target people. And this is where the global events, those two that has been in place in 2021, would be helpful to think of. If we take a look at what would happen in terms of the investment. So you want to ask the government to do that and where to invest. The subsidy is an issue, and Schenken said it right. We need data to show them what will be the best investment rather than subsidy. In addition, we also need data for the government to be able to say, well, they are accountable, as Anna has already said. They're accountable to their people. So they need to really put short-term and also think of long-term. Now, fortify food as an interim. In a social protection, you want to also increase micronutrient quickly. But then on a long term, you need to grow that. Where to grow that? Well, let's talk about farmers. The opportunity that Rob said about innovation, about technology. Best technology should be given to the place where smallholder farmers need it. And Usha is right. They need productivity. They also need technology. They need innovation. They need market. We can help them. They can supply foods for the poor. And also the technology that are climate smart. These are important for them to be able to deliver at the end, you know, the things we say win-win, healthy, sustainable, you know, good for environment. And the role of private sector cannot be ignored. I'm so glad to hear that there's a lot of discussion about how we can engage with private sector and bring importance, particularly for innovation, for research and development. With the COVID-19, it challenged the food sector, the business sector to do more of this. And we can see now that power can be used for a public good. The last thing I want to leave you with is what I think is important to all of us. How can we make a difference? And I think that the power of us is important to recognize. Regardless of your geography or where discipline or sectors or age or gender, you can make the difference. This forum for this coming week will open opportunities as well as the knowledge for you to walk confidently. In combination, all of us will be able to push this over the edge. And that's what I would like to leave you with. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Imorn, and thank you, panel, and thank you, Lawrence, for moderating a great panel. This was a very insightful afternoon for me, at least, and an excellent session to open Connected. So let me take now a few minutes, because we're running late, to introduce you to the work of the New Micronutrient Forum. Because in addition to organizing exciting conferences every 2 years, there's so much more. You heard Howdy Bowie in his opening refer to the Micronutrient Forum as an independent knowledge broker. And because we develop policies, and because we do not implement programs or develop policies or do research ourselves, we can act as a neutral convener, attracting the leading experts in the field to collaborate on a plan that will benefit each of their organizations, but that as a whole is out of the scope of any of the individual organizations. This is visible in one of our priority areas, the micronutrient data gap, where the Forum has developed a strategic plan jointly with stakeholders to systematically address this issue together. This year has definitely kept us on our toes. So like everyone, I was also horrified by the projections of the devastating impact the COVID pandemic could have on malnutrition, potentially wiping away decades of progress in nutrition. But this crisis, like every crisis, has also led to new opportunities. And the Standing Together for Nutrition Consortium was such an opportunity, and it brought the nutrition and food systems communities' power together, rising to the challenge, overcoming individual differences, and working together for a common goal. So the Micronutrient Forum, together with GAIN and with financial support from CIF, took the initiative and facilitated action among nutrition, food systems, health, and economic experts. Working together, we modeled the potential impacts of COVID on malnutrition, and we developed a joint set of costed recommendations to mitigate these impacts. And this will be published soon. But I invite you to join the session later today addressing the crisis of COVID-19 on malnutrition, which starts at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. And while we acknowledge the need to work on nutrition holistically, the Forum focuses on promoting dialogue and collective action in the field of micronutrients especially, across multiple sectors by bridging nutrition science, policy, programs, and responsible business practices about micronutrient malnutrition and how to address it. So in our recent Lancet commentary, we outlined the case for explicitly including micronutrient nutrition in the global nutrition agenda and ensuring the community has an effective resource and advocate for this triple burden of malnutrition. So as the Forum works to accelerate nutrition, we can already share some exciting progress in advocacy for maternal micronutrient supplements, or MMS, an intervention which is even more important now because we heard that COVID-19 makes it more difficult also for pregnant women to meet their micronutrient requirements. As an independent knowledge broker, the Forum moderates critical dialogue to accelerate the current momentum on MMS adoption and scale-up. And we invite you to 2 live plenary sessions on MMS, one on Thursday at 10:45 Eastern Standard Time, and one on Friday at the same time, 10:45 Eastern Standard Time. And in addition, we have many sponsored and on-demand sessions that you can check via the MMS tile on the website. The Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies Accelerator was led by the Forum and launched at the 2019 Goalkeepers event, brought together 11 partners and nearly $50 million in financing and in-kind contributions to accelerate the adoption and scale-up of MMS. In addition, the Forum organized an MMS stakeholder alignment consultation that took place this February in Washington, D.C., bringing 43 stakeholders from 27 organizations together to prioritize work areas and tactics to accelerate progress. So these were some examples of our current work and what we can bring to partners. Now, this has been a very long and thought-provoking kickoff to the Micronutrient Forum 5th Global Conference Connected, and we are so glad to have you here with us. We have quite a remarkable live program, so please join us today in sessions on the global state of micronutrients, on COVID and malnutrition, and on the quality of evidence for nutrition policies. And log in again tomorrow and the rest of the week when we bring you in-depth conversations on the drivers of stunting, discussions on large-scale fortification, updates on micronutrient assessments and micronutrient interventions, and so much more, which you can find on our connected website. We hope this week will bring fruitful conversations, new connections, and stimulates your will to push forward. This is also an excellent opportunity for upcoming generations to learn from experts in the field. You heard Imorn referring to this. And on the other hand, I'm also inspired by the young generation and their fresh ideas and new approaches. And this is one of the many reasons why the Micronutrient Forum has partnered with Sight and Life on their recent elevator pitch contest, seeking pandemic-proof innovations. Be sure to watch the 4 finalists pitching their pandemic-proof innovation, and you can take part by voting for your favorite candidates via the connected website. So to close, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts during the conference with us using the chat options, and also during the on social media using the hashtag MNF2020. And be sure to sign up for the MNF newsletter to receive daily updates on the happenings and know what is coming during Connected 2020. So let this be the start of a great week and connect. Thank you very much, everyone.